Further, she was asked questions about Doha, this Israeli unilateral strike inside a suburban enclave in Qatar. She was asked repeatedly whether Israel directly notified the United States or not, but she deferred on that. She would only say that the U.S. military notified the White House that Israel was launching an attack. She wouldn't say if Israel told the U.S. military or if it was something that the U.S. military detected. She read a statement from the president, part of which says that it is unfortunate that this attack inside a suburb took place. It does not advance U.S. interests, but going after Hamas does, she said.
Yeah, and we learned that President Trump called both Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Qatari leaders, the Prime Minister and the Emir. And we have Kevin Liptak and retired U.S. Army Major Mike Lyons with us, as well as Colin Clark. He's the Director of Policy and Research at the Soufan Group. First, I want to go to you, Colin, if we can, because this was a really interesting line that Karoline Leavitt was walking here. She would not say that Israel had not alerted the White House. The line that she was really leaning into is that the Trump administration was notified by the U.S. military that Israel was attacking Hamas, and that the White House actually informed Qatar. What did you think of what you heard?
Yeah, I think verbal gymnastics, essentially. And I think the administration is now trying to backtrack and kind of get on the right side of this. You also heard Karoline Leavitt say that the strikes don't serve Israel's interest, which I agree with, but maybe they serve Benjamin Netanyahu's interest, because it's hard to believe that he's looking for a deal right now with these types of actions. I'd say just also briefly, this puts Qatar in a very difficult position because as a mediator, Qatar has now been attacked by the Iranians and the Israelis on Qatari soil. And so why would anybody want to go out and try to be a mediator or a negotiator and push for conflict resolution when they end up bearing the brunt of Israeli military strikes? So really kind of precarious moment here in what's been, a conflict that's dragged on for almost 2 years now.
Major Lyons, what do you make of Leavitt saying that in his post, this social media post that Trump put up this weekend, saying that this would be Hamas's last warning, last chance to negotiate a ceasefire and hostage deal? She argued that that was not a precursor or a warning about this specific attack. Do you buy the White House's line on that?
I probably don't. I think this is the last chance, and that's why that statement came out about this is not in the best interest of Israel to do this. I mean, look, Israel is decapitation strategy is how they operate. This was, attack long planned in advance. That they were going to wait for the moment for this to happen. And we saw, again, all the verbal gymnastics when it came to trying to figure out what the United States was going to say. So the United States now has come out somewhat against it as it's trying to go that route. But I do think that deep down, this is it from the president's perspective. He promises Qatar they won't be attacked again. Not sure how we can do that at this point. So again, I think this is, from the president's perspective, Israel's last shot. If they're going to do anything with regard to going after the leadership, the decapitation strategy they always have in their conflicts.
Yeah, and Kevin, the White House is in a tricky spot. It's so clear. Karoline Leavitt is laying out goals that are now significantly less likely because of this strike, talking about how maybe there's an opportunity for peace from this strike. Can you explain to us what you know from your reporting about how and who the Trump administration was notified by and just the sensitivities around that?
Yeah, and I think Karoline Leavitt was pretty explicit that there was no political communication between Israel and the White House ahead of this attack. She was very explicit that the White House received word from the U.S. military that this was in the offing, and she eventually got around to saying that the U.S. military learned just ahead of this attack. But I think her drawing the distinction there is pretty notable and does betray a degree of frustration. It's not every day that the White House or President Trump or the president's spokespeople come out and say that an Israeli action runs completely counter to what they're trying to accomplish in the region. And certainly this statement was very carefully worded. It was lengthy. It had a lot of sort of specifics in it. But underneath all of that, I think it's pretty clear that the president is not pleased that this occurred, that he thinks that this could potentially run opposite to what he's trying to achieve. When Karoline Leavitt says that the president thinks that this could advance peace, it's not precisely clear clear what exactly she means by that. And I think it's obvious that the White House feels a need to try and sort of assuage the Qatari concerns that this could potentially put them at greater risk. You know, the U.S.-Qatar relationship is such a critical one for the region. The Qataris have been cultivating President Trump going back several months. He was the first sitting U.S. president to visit Qatar back in May, and there are thousands of troops based at the Al Udeid Air Base there. And so I think it was very sort of critical for her to lay out exactly how all of this played out, both on the Israeli side but on the Qatari side. And I want you to listen to what she said about what the White House did immediately when they learned that this was potentially happening.
President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace.
Now, Levitt also said that Trump spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and told them and reassured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil. But it's not exactly sure how he can provide those assurances. And the events of today just go to show that some of Israel's actions are occurring without a lot of buy-in from the United States.
Notable also that literally just moments ago, a video statement was shared by the IDF saying that the people that they targeted today in Qatar repeatedly sabotaged every attempt at negotiations. This Israeli military chief added that the IDF would continue to carry out its mission and settle accounts with our enemies. I'm curious, Colin, when you hear the White House asked about whether the Abraham Accords are now at risk of falling apart, and you don't hear a direct answer, but rather you hear that President Trump sees this as an opportunity for peace. I mean, are the Abraham Accords now potentially at risk?
I think absolutely. I mean, I was having that conversation earlier today with colleagues when we first learned of the strike. That's one of the first things that came up. And I think, you know, the president's right to be frustrated because, frankly, when Israel carries out an attack like this on the sovereign soil of a U.S. ally, it's emasculating to the president. I think there's few things worse to him than being shown up. And so there's got to be clear frustration there with Netanyahu. And given Trump's kind of obsession, if you will, over a Nobel Peace Prize, you know, and holding up the Abraham Accords as this gold standard, with those now potentially in risk, at risk, you've got to understand that within the kind of upper echelon of the Trump administration, there's probably a lot of frustration with the way that the Israelis are kind of acting with impunity throughout the region, launching strikes in Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Qatar. You know, this is just what we're seeing now with Israel as a regional hegemon, completely unchecked.
A lot of frustration we are sensing today in that briefing for sure. Colin Clark, thank you. Major Mike Lyons, Kevin Liptak, we appreciate your reporting.